Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Behind the reel, we've got another special guest here. We have Mr. Richy Laughery. Apparently, I've been pronouncing his name wrong of all the years that I've known him, clear back to 2015. Been pronouncing his name wrong, so make sure you guys don't do the same. He is a swim bait guru. He goes by Missouri Swimbait Slinger. Um, Make sure you guys check him out. He is a MOYAC member and a longtime kayak fishing angler as well as a swim bait angler. So we were having some technical difficulties. Let me know over there in the comments, you guys. Can you hear me okay? And about the visuals as well. We were having a little bit of a freezing up issue with the video feed. So make sure you guys see you there, Stephen Davis. Shout out to Davis Custom Rods. He is getting me fixed up, and he is repairing my tip top on my swim bait rod. Oddly enough, I am getting my swim bait rod fixed up. That way I can fish it this weekend in order to follow the tips Richie's about to give us on catching fish in the fall with big swim baits. So shout out to Davis Custom Rods. We will be doing a video with them, and really excited to have them on board this year with the Air Capital Kayak Anglers. They are donating a very nice rod to the Angler of the Year. Excited to be giving that away this Saturday. Shout out to Davis Custom Rods. Go check them out, daviscustomrods.com. Check them out on Facebook. Check them out on Instagram. They can get you set up. We got a couple people joining in the comments here. Guys, let me know. Can you hear me okay? Does everything look good? I'm about to bring on our guest, Richy. He is flashing some swim baits as we speak. He is ready to go and tell us just how he is able to catch these big fish. And he's got a bit of a background when it comes to this. So go look up Richy Laughery on Facebook, and you'll see all those big fish he catches. All right, let's bring him on, guys. There it is. All
What's
right,
up?
what's up, man?
Another wonderful day in the Ozarks.
Heck yeah. So as the viewers at home can see, that is pronounced Laughery.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's Old English, Irish dialect. Uh, for all I know, there was confusion at Ellis Island when great and grandparents imported whatever.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, I apologize, but it's probably not the first time you've had a.
No.
You're used to it by now.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So first off, do just kind of briefly introduce yourself. You and I met through MOYAC and through Ozarks Extreme Kayak
Yep.
Fishing Pro Shop.
Yep.
So, but your past with swim baits and kayaks probably goes even further back. So, kind of just give us a background story on you.
We'll make it short and sweet. Done it a couple times in other interviews, but I started kayak fishing in Southern California. As everything else was Southern California, everything's just expensive, so boats was out of the question. Even just for daily use on the lakes, it cost $15 to $20 just to launch every day. On top of the $450 a gallon fuel out there. So kayak was the way to go. I moved back. I started that in 2009. I moved back to Missouri late 2010. I had thrown miscellaneous swim baits over the years. Like I bought the Castaic hardhead, bluegill, and shad back in the late 90s. I didn't bring it in, but my dad made the broomstick lure that looks like the AC Cole with the slanted face, single joint, little paddle tail. I was rifling through his tackle box one day, like 2000, 2001, and this bait overall is like 8 inches, and I threw it on a 7-foot medium heavy ugly stick with a spinning rod with 14-pound mono in the local pond, and I had 2 4-pound bass just waking it on the surface, and then put it down, never picked it up again. So in 2013, I had entered my first kayak, my first online kayak tournament, and caught a first limit. A limit the first day. had like 80 inches, and we had a whole week to get our best 5 fish. And I couldn't catch fish over 14 inches to save my life all that week. And I was like, there's got to be something more to do to tempt these big fish. And I picked up a Strike King King Kong 6-inch wake bait. There was about a month learning curve to it. Come to find out, I was just fishing it too slow. I was making it dive and stuff. Once I started slow rolling it, the fish started showing themselves. They started exploding on the bait. My first trip to Table Rock with that bait, first fish on it was a 5 1/4 pound smallmouth.
Nice.
I almost forgot to set the hook when that fish hit because it was such a picturesque strike. And I mean, the fish clamped its mouth around the bait and it come all out of the water. And I'm like, and it's it grew from there. I think about the same time I come across a post that Kevin Brightwell made on, it was Swimbait Nation back then, like the OG Swimbait Nation Facebook group. And I immediately recognized the background as a local creek.
Okay.
And hit him up. And that was the start of our relationship and my relationship with KGB Swimbaits. So I've been with them nearly since the beginning. And then the swimbait rods coming along in my own arsenal. I mean, I started, with what I could get. And go sit down. I got serious, picked up a 711 TFO Mag Heavy 1-6. Was throwing Kevin's first gen Chad S-Waver 168, and then the 200 come out in the summer of 2014. And then come around to March of 2015, I caught a 8-pound, 10-ounce largemouth out of Table Rock on that S-Waver 200.
Nice.
Won a online charity tournament with that fish. And then, even previous to that 8-pounder, fishing that S-Waver, either the 168 or the 200 throughout the cooler months, yielded a lot of 2 to 6 pound fish. And it wasn't just going out and getting 1 or 2 bites a day. It was go out on a warm afternoon and catch 10 and miss a handful. And there's such a misconception of swimbait fishing. If you really put in your time, you start noticing trends of when these bigger fish become active, and it almost becomes second nature of when you need to be out there and throwing them. I literally, back in May this year, I went to work on a Tuesday and had just a strong gut feeling that I should have been on the water that day. And I went into work at 8 o'clock. About 10 o'clock, a buddy texts me. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to the lake. How's it been fishing?" I go, "It's been fishing really good, and I've got this strong gut feeling today that I should have just skipped work." So I get off work at 5, go pick up my kiddo, get home at about 5:15, 5:19. He texts me a picture of a 9-0 that was 23 inches long, caught on a mag draft.
Heck yeah.
So you start picking up on these cues of when these fish need to eat, when they want to eat. And so but it comes with experience and time on the water. I've got bites that I've worked on areas for 3 and 4 years.
Now what's this bait?
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
No, you're good.
I'm battling a 4-year-old tonight.
What is that?
No, you're good. Shout out to Mike Boyle's Fishing. If you guys are in the Table Rock area, hit up Mike. He'll put you on some fish. And Mike, like myself, has been he wants to know what the swim bait's called.
Please go play.
Mike, like myself, has been pronouncing Richie's last name wrong for quite some time now.
And I've known him since 2011 or 12.
Yeah. Yeah, so Richie and I go back to when I first started the Air Capital Kayak Anglers. I've got family in Ozark, Missouri, not too far from Table Rock Lake. So I had heard about this kayak shop over off of Indian Point called Ozarks Extreme Kayak Fishing Pro Shop. And Richie was guiding for them and pro staffing for them. And Eric was a great dude. I went down there, met him. They had this little tiny shop at the time. And he was like, yeah, man, we'll sponsor your club. He hooked us up with some gear to give away and everything. And then he moved into a bigger location out there, wherever that was. Where was
Reed
that?
Springs.
Reed Springs. And
it put us out of reach for really doing the rental stuff that we did on Indian Point. It made for long drives. It just wasn't feasible.
Badass shop,
at least that rental part that we did.
Shop.
We had stupid amount of room. We had a big inventory. I mean, we could stand 14-foot kayaks up on end straight up, so they were just stacked vertically against the wall. You could see everything.
I bought a Castaic swim bait when I went there, actually.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it was, but it was a soft plastic Castaic swim bait. So this time of year, let's get into some of the fall stuff. So obviously you're going to take some time on the water, years of experience to figure out when these big fish are moving up. But when these fish are moving up and they're feeding on bait fish, what kind of a bait would you like to use? I'm sure there's a handful of them, but if you want to go over some of your favorites, how you like to work them, maybe some of the gear that you like to throw them on.
So I fish mainly Table Rock bull shoals, Highland Rocky reservoirs. A lot of guys do chase fish up the creeks. I've not really personally had too much success doing that. Most of my fish in the fall time, once the water hits about 65 degrees, are out in the main lake. Dude, go sit down. Go play your game, please. And covering water is the name of the game most of the time. But there are some things to look for that will help narrow down fish location. I really do, especially in the fall time, really do prefer wind-blown bank. And especially the steeper banks with quick deep water access, whether it be a bluff bank or, say a main lake point along the old river channel, and the point may be flat on the one side, but it's straight drop bluff under the water. That whole ridge, that's going to be a good hot spot.
Good ambush point. Is that what you're looking for? Places for these fish to ambush and have a place to kind of corral the bait fish?
Oh yeah. No, just watch. Go watch cartoons.
During our mic check, guys, the kid was completely silent. So he just waited till that red button started flashing.
I'm not flip over. I promise I
told you to be quiet. Go play your game. Play more. Most of the time I am fishing uphill. That does help with the ambush effect. Even so, last fall when I was fishing our state championship, that was one thing I was doing. I was in a same area that I described on a long gravel point right next to the main river channel, and I had standing timber in the area, and I was working topwaters. Well, I was half a cast or so off the bank casting at these timbers out in further out in the channel, and I made a bomb cast with a top water, and mid cast, it sounded like 6 toilets just flushed behind me, and I looked back, and they're pushing 6 and 7 inch shad on the bank. So that, and I've seen that for years on this lake. So I'm always trying to get boat, kayak, or even just stand on the bank to fish that uphill.
Okay.
And that's why I like either standing timber or not clean gravel areas. I like to see, I mean, if it's a little dingy, you can't see that 10 foot down, because sometimes table rock gets crystal clear. Like if you got a graph, run through an area and look for them big bumps on the bottom, that big boulder, big chunk rock. That's my big preference coming to fall, because that's other things.
Why? What have you
That's
kind
other,
of figured out why, or?
it's the bass themselves can use that as hiding spots.
Okay.
Because the shad will school in the fall.
Yeah.
And you've got the bigger fish that don't want to move a lot. They're not like them 1, 2, 3 pound fish that will chase that school around. They'd rather
just wait for them to come to them.
Yeah, sorry, I'm lost in thought.
No, you're good.
Just they'll follow the schools, but not as aggressively as the smaller fish.
Okay.
But they're looking for bigger prey items too. That's another flip of the coin in the fall, because it seems, just reading conversations and stuff online, it seems like everyone forgets about the 6, 7, 8 inch, the parents of the yearling spawn of shad that are still around. They're not like it's not like flies where they reproduce and then the parents die off and then there's the babies and they grow up to reproduce. No, there'll be 3 and 4 and 5 year old shad, and good populations of them too. And those will be those 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 inch shad, and then 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plus pound fish. That's what they want to eat. They don't want to run around eating crumbs.
Yeah.
They can stack 4 or 5 of them 8 inch gizzard shad like a deck of cards in their belly.
Yeah. Heck yeah. So when you find them really active, what's some of your favorite baits to throw?
Oh, you can get into them with segmented baits. I mean, I don't use them personally. I have buddies in the area that do, but I mean, bull shads, the Spro, BBZ, the segmented bait.
You've been throwing that one for a long time.
So this is the brand new one.
Okay.
I broke my original one after a smallie got skin hooked and the bait tore out of its mouth under tension and went rocketing into the boulder I was standing on and busted the head off.
I jumped off of the car and I found it. And my truck is.
Here's some legal dope drip right here. I've got a couple of
I
these.
didn't move it upside down.
Hey, I'm trying to do something.
I'll probably be throwing this one here. This could definitely mimic a shad right here.
Oh.
Play something else, please.
No!
Please. Go to your room.
No!
Just picked this up from bait-wrx.
I hope we don't have to take an intermission, so I have to take care of something.
Hey, that's cool. Yeah. Hey, take
Hold
care.
on. You might be content. Would you please go do what you're doing?
I think he's bribing him with swim baits. I think that's what he's doing, ladies and gentlemen.
Play something else.
Oh,
triple trout.
Triple trout.
That's
Heck
10
yeah.
inch. Slow sink. custom spray paint job.
How far down can you fish that thing, or is that not really meant to be fished deep?
As deep as you let it sink. That's another thing with like slow sinks, fast sinks. You can cover water faster with a fast sink, with a faster retrieve because of the way it will stay down. You can burn a slow sink and have it stay on the surface without completely just blowing out of the surface of the water. Or you can go to a more moderate retrieve and it will stay down at a level that you count it down to. I mean, they'll sink to the bottom in 100 foot of water, but
Okay. You just gotta have enough line on your spool, right? I mean,
yeah.
it'll go as far down as you let it.
So, I mean, most of the time, especially like kayak or boat guys, when they can graph an area, and say you find fish at a certain depth, just for example, like 15 feet, you can cast that bait out, whether it be a segmented swimmer or a glide. You can count that bait down. That say they sink a foot a second, count that 15 seconds, and it may take you a couple of times because much like with crankbait fishing, the diameter of your line can play into your retrieve depth.
Sure.
Because if you go with a thicker line, you got more resistance. It can cause the bait to rise up. Fluorocarbon can help with that. I just personally don't care for fluorocarbon. I've tried different knots, a couple different brands. I just don't trust it. It feels to me it gets brittle in the winter and hard. I've always stuck with mono. I mean, I've landed 50-pound striper on 20-pound big game. My confidence in the line is high.
I've been throwing fluorocarbon on mine.
I can just hook them baits and not give a crap, and know that even if I get a bird's nest, it's not gonna. I'm not gonna get some weird shock down in the spool, and then my next cast, the line breaks down in the spool and the bait goes sailing.
Yeah,
it's just I'm going at this 2001, so 8 years now. Been pretty dedicated. I'd say 90% of my fishing is 6 to 12-inch swim baits.
Heck yeah.
So you can count the bait down, cover that water. Earlier in the fall, when that water's still in that 60s, you can get away with a little more aggressive retrieves. If you're seeing fish hit on top, don't be afraid to throw a floater. Whether it be build wake or like that Spro, this thing swims with just a breath of the wind blowing on the line. So there's no worries about if it'll swim on a super slow pull. And that's like one of the fastest ways to cover water and get reaction bites.
Is that a little 6 cents?
Yeah, that's that speed wake. I really wish they'd make a bigger size. I'll be getting a Fish Lab 6-inch BioShad wake coming here real quick. I'll probably get it painted to more natural color because they have a couple of weird colors.
If you need a wake bait, I know a guy. It might be hard to get a hold of one, but this sucker right here gets big.
I want that full-size slap trout.
Yeah, I got a baby. Slap.
I want that big one.
I got a baby.
Ooh, but the baby would work too.
So just a shout out to one of your sponsors, bait-wrx. If you guys are looking to get some swim baits, bait-wrx is a really good place to do that. I walked in there and they had all kinds of cool stuff. They have KGB Chads even from time to time that are custom painted. That speed wake that Richie was showing you from 6 Cents, I'm sure that you could probably pick one of those up there. I saw some mag drafts.
Yes.
They've got all kinds of mega bass baits. I mean, they must have taken a page out of your book for the swim baits. I'm assuming that's kind of what you're contributing to as a part of the team, kind of on the swim bait game.
So weird. There we go. Boom.
They got those too?
They also have both sizes of the KGB rods.
Snap. And there's a Chad Shad there.
Hold on. That's the smooth.
Is there a hotter bait in the swim bait world right now?
And the textured scaled.
Now, is that discontinued or is he still doing those?
That's a new one.
Oh, okay. So the smooth is the OG.
Nope.
Okay.
The scaled is the OG.
That's what I thought.
He's not discontinued them. The smooth is the new one.
Now tell me this. Why do you throw one versus the other, or does it matter?
So the smooths, I think it's just more on terms of hydrodynamics. With the smooths, they don't have the rigid surface like the textured baits.
Yeah.
So that you tend to get an extra 6-8 inches on a glide overall, like 4 inches from center line.
I got you. So those smooth ones are going to swing a little bit wider?
Yeah.
Okay.
And make just a little sharper transition. And there's one really isn't better than the other. Some guys do like scaled baits. Some guys like the smooth baits. Some guys like the smooth baits because it's a fish grabs it and it's just slick.
Yeah.
And some other guys have confidence level. They're like, I've got a big rod. It doesn't matter to me if it's checked, but if it's textured. But it might be in their head. They might need the texture. Confidence is a big thing in this game too.
Just a confidence thing. Well, you're going now. Talk about this. So you talk about confidence. How do you maintain confidence after what I'm assuming could be several trips out, especially in the fall where you're not catching any fish? So how do you keep that confidence level up?
So when I first started, because I've got a whole bunch, not so much honey holes, but sweet spots for every time of year now. I've been doing it 8 years. But when I first started out, it was just covering water and hitting. You can study maps and kind of establish prime areas and go fish those areas. And it's that time on the water. And even now, because my wife works graveyards, she does have the weekends off. But those Saturday, Sundays, that's the only 2 days I get to go fishing, unless I take kiddo with me on any other day, which ain't too much of an occurrence because he's good for about an hour in the boat and then he goes stir crazy. But
I've been there.
But anyway, but yeah, even just 1 day a week, taking that 1 day, going to an area. Literally in the fall time, I make 4 to 5 casts in a spot. I mean, staying in one spot. If I don't get bit, I'm moving. You will know within the first few casts, especially with a 6 or 8 inch bait, if the fish are there. Whether you get bumped or you get slammed, you'll know they're there. And most of the time, they start grouping up, especially that 3 to 5 pound range of fish. They'll start grouping up in the fall and hurting that shad.
Hey, we were talking about textured baits. Check this out. I know some of you guys wanting to get into a big glide. This is a pretty good budget minded. Maybe a little bit more than your S-Waver 200, but this is a 6 cents. This is a 6 cents draw, and this is in the tilapia color. Really nice paint job. I haven't fished it yet, but this is actually my biggest swim bait that I own. Just picked it up the other day.
Hold on, I'm clearing the lid off the tackle box.
Pretty cool though. Oh yeah, that's the legend, right?
That's the king.
The king. Okay. Is that the biggest one?
Yeah. Well, there's the pounder, but it's not been publicly sold yet.
Now you've caught fish on that king, right?
I've had a couple of small ones. I actually refused the king for the first couple of years he had them available because I didn't have a rod big enough to throw it. They were 9 ounces, and we had a custom back a couple of years when he was having rods built. We were waiting on an order for over a year, and finally got him in 2018, the summer of 2018, the 8 to 14 ounce beef stick. And that's when I finally had something to throw this chunk of resin with.
That thing was huge, man.
Along with this, that's a 11-inch Rego STK swimmer.
Nice.
And then the 12-inch Savage Gear line through.
Yeah.
That's the S-Waver 200.
Oh wow.
Next to that 12.
Yeah. And that S-Waver 200, is it about 9 inches or
8?
What is 8? Yeah.
There's a 168.
Yeah, the 168. I have one of those.
That is a numbers bait.
Got this from Mr. Legal Dope, Edwin Chardon himself. So here's that 9-inch up next to the 168 here.
Yeah.
But okay, 168 and the 200. Yep.
Yep.
And what color is that? Is that the Party Crasher you always talk about?
Party Crasher. It's just your generic black back, silver side, white belly.
You get some golden shiner, some, heck yeah, that does it all right there.
That bait, well, yeah, but also this bait comes in like 30 different colors.
Yeah.
Most of the time, guys ask me about colors. I personally, 97% of the time, I stick with natural colors. Sometimes there's exceptions.
Yeah, that's cool.
So I mentioned that watching those fish push shad on the shoreline, the top bar I was using was a Zara Spook one knocker, and it had a Jigskin's halo graphic wrap on it, and it was that pink back, silver side, white belly wrap. I actually lengthed in the biggest limit of that 1-day limit of that tournament on that bait. All the fish caught on that spook, and I won 2 big bass slots for that day, so I got $80 back in my pocket. But winning day 2 really didn't do me no good when I only weighed in 1 fish on day 1. So anyway, it really didn't, other than a little bit of cash, I didn't win nothing on that tournament. But I had Peyton Stump Triple P Customs paint match a Chad Shad for me to match that
Nice.
spook.
Yeah.
But kind of sticking with color, I was 2014-15, I was throwing around the Spro 4-inch shad floater, and on that bait, on the natural, I think it was the natural shad, the tip of the tail here is golden and the rest of the belly's white. And I had an issue with fish coming up and eating the tail on the bait.
Mm-hmm.
I went home, took a toothbrush and some red paint, flicked it, did a little blood splatter on the chin here, and then added a red treble hook to the front went out the very next day, and I mean every fish hit that hook. So that's a little tip. If you're missing fish on the wake baits, just on the surface baits, the floaters, the wakes, try swapping that front hook out for a red, or
Okay.
even with your spike it dye pin, do a little red around the gills.
Mhm.
Where am I at? Yeah, right there. This guy.
Yeah, I picked up some of those pins not too long ago, and I keep them in the kayak. Is that what you did
This
there?
guy's pinned.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
It,
Just give them
that's the
something a little bit to key in on.
yeah, and it's just a visual point from the bottom.
Yeah.
When they get close. But so covering water, looking for surfacing fish. Just I like looking for hiding areas like that chunk rock, that standing timber. On average, especially in that time,
You got to
I'll get
answer
to
this
Mike.
one. You got to answer. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, do your thing, and then we'll get back to this question.
Well, KGB Swimbaits legend.
You do the legend.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's the OG legend, and then there's the smooth
Okay.
reborn. I'll probably have that bait in my hand at least 50% of the time that I'll be fishing that tournament. I will have the king on board. Kevin got third overall at that tournament in 18 or 19 on a 6.12 pound fish on the king. That was an $11,200 paycheck.
Dang.
And then Cole won it last year on the legend. Just that big shad that I've seen like I said, I've seen so many times when the bass have pushed them larger shad, gizzard shad, up on the bank, and so it's hard to beat on a highland on any shad body of water with a shad population. It's hard to beat a big shad profiled bait.
Now, do you go with one? So you got the glide bait. Do you go with another style of swim bait as well to pair with that, or are you just
So
strictly throwing glide baits this time of year?
well, this custom wrapped Mega Dog speaks differently. I mean, we've got teeth marks and hook points, and that's just from the last week and a half.
Who makes the Mega Dog?
That's the Strike King.
Strike King. Okay.
It's just a big walking bait. That's
Yeah.
6-inch. The Black Dog Lunker Punker G2, the 6-inch. I've done really good in the fall. And you work it the same way like a spook. Tempo is varies day to day. You can work it fast. One thing I coined in on at that championship last year, I would blast a cast past the standing timbers, and I mean just absolutely chasse it. Ugh. Work it fast, work it fast up to the tree and kill it. About 3 to 5 second pause, pull it. 3 to 5 second pause, pull it, and you will know fish are there real quick or not, because that bait won't get but 2-3 foot from that standing timber, and they blow up on it.
Yeah.
And if they don't start working it faster in, because it kind of looks like a fleeing bait fish. And I mean, if they don't hit it within that 20 foot of that timber, just reel it in and bomb it onto the next one. I actually had 3 groups of like 4 and 5 trees, but they were all say 30 yards apart. So I was bouncing between the trees. I would make a cast over, catch one fish, uh, make a few more casts, didn't catch another fish. Moved on to the next area of the trees. First cast, caught a fish. Made a second cast, didn't catch him. That clued me in. I noticed that real quick, and I was able to catch a fish off a group of trees, move, let the other spot rest, catch fish off the other spot, and then come back. And then still, I did that for 3 hours. I bounced between these three group of trees, and even caught a 23-inch walleye on a spook
Dang,
during that tournament.
that's weird.
He did not live to see another day, because had he been a largemouth, he would have won the $550 big bass pot, because a 21 1/4 inch fish largemouth won that pot. I actually called a buddy on the way back to the weigh-in on Indian Point. I go, "Hey, are you home?" He goes, "Yeah." I'm like, "You want a walleye?" He's like, "Yeah." You go fishing today? I go, "Yeah, I'm in the middle of a tournament." I was like, "That sucker just cost me $500."
He's done it. He's ending up on the frying pan tonight.
Yeah. But anyway,
Like, yeah.
so back to the point, covering water. And so during that fall, what I've seen carrying into like December, we really don't see a lot of ice down here. Unless we just get an absolute cold snap at the end of January, early February.
Sure.
It might crust up the first 10 inches of the bank line. Most of the time that's bust up by wind chop. But I've literally caught topwater fish into January in the same areas that I catch them in the fall. Like I said, right next to deep water accesses, and over them chunk rock banks, over that timber. I mean, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but it's a formula there that has just worked.
Yeah.
And it works every year.
Do you think we're there yet? Based on the conditions you're seeing, water temperature, do you think we're there yet?
Water's still a little warm on Table Rock. We just hit 80 this weekend with this little cold snap. I mean, we probably got surface temperatures in the high 70s. I mean, you can still catch them on the glide. You're going to use probably it's probably going to be more of a reaction bite with a moderate retrieve, if not a choppy retrieve. You can do that with 180 reel pops.
Okay.
And vary the speed of that. And I mean, you can do the slow and steady just enough to get that bait swimming. And then especially when you come near a piece of cover with the glide, just do a couple reel pops and a little stall. And that most of the time when you go to do that stall, kind of lean forward, giving that bait slack, and most of the time it'll allow that bait to glide off. And if you don't get hit right at that instant, continue your slow and retrieve, and you can do that every 10-20 reel cranks.
Just kind of mixing it up.
Yeah, and you'll vary the retrieve until you get bit. Try to remember what you were doing when you got bit. I know that's so hard, especially
really
when it's a bigger fish.
You get excited and you're like, wait, I don't remember. Was I pausing it, or was I ripping it, or was I doing my little, cadence? Yeah.
Yep. I started recording myself with my GoPro this year, and because we had a weird year for our spring fishing anyway, but there was times I could go out, sit in a spot and catch 10 fish, and I mean, there's 5 of them are over 4 pounds, and then go out other times and just absolutely get skunked in the same conditions, same water temp, same water clarity, same time of the day. But so I started recording myself, and you could see where I was reeling, and like I had like a brain fart and stopped or something, and then
That's when
picked
you
back
get
up real
smacked.
quick, and then boom, yeah, and then you see yourself swing, and I was like, okay, that's what I did.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So, just kind of using that information later on to figure out, what were they actually, what caused that bite,
Yeah, and I've
That's cool.
seen that. So I've seen that in with my glide bait fishing too, because I did the same thing. I was doing 180 chops, and like maybe the eagle flew by, and I was like, oh, cool, and I paused for a second, and then picked it back up, and right then I got hit.
That's when they smacked
You can, yeah, the being able to review yourself and what you did.
That's kind of cool. Shout out to Joe Hayes. What's up, man? Joe beat me at Wilson, just so everybody knows. I got to admit that. I was talking smack on Facebook, and he beat me.
So, Joe Hayes has got a question. Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Lost baits. I actually lost one last week. I mean, to the average non-swim bait guy, spending more than $10-15 on a bait is ridiculous. But I did lose one on the 12-inch Savage gear, which originally cost $35-40 when they first debuted. I think $45. I went back to Amazon and I found a deal on them for $15 a piece, and I bought 2. And one thing I'm going to avoid losing that bait again was a wire leader, because I got broke off in the rocks and with some mussels. About the only other thing, most of the time in the fall, winter, I'm fishing these baits in less than 10 foot of water.
Yeah.
There's some deep bites. I've got on the deep bites. 4 years ago, me and Brennan went out on Table Rock looking for a glide bait bite. We had stupid clear water. I mean, I think we had 20-foot visibility, and just absolutely saw nothing shallow. And I went out crossing a Man Creek channel. The gut of it was like 80 feet deep, and I'm watching the graph, and then there was this about 10-foot kick, and there big old shad, school of shad on it, and you can see the zoomies on the screen was the fish, and I dropped down on them, and I with just it was a Demiki rig and a fluke, and I caught 15 fish in 40 minutes, and I had 3 bass over 18 inches was my 3 biggest one. But most of the time I can get them, like I mentioned, most of the time, and especially when we do start getting really cool in the air temps, it's them 5-10 degree warmer afternoons when I do go out and see a lot of success. And then same with us, them fish want to be warm, and so they'll move if they even feel a half a degree difference in that water temp. They'll move there to feed, and then
that could be partially why they're moving up into that rock, bottom as well.
Yeah, especially when you get in later fall, you get that all day sun, little to no wind, and it'll cook them rocks.
Clear
yeah,
water.
them fish will move up shallow in the afternoon to feed. And then another thing in the fall is storm fronts. fishing before the storm fronts. I've had 20 and 25 fish hours or half hours. I mean, as a front is moving in. One time with it was a no-name 5 or 6 inch paddle tail bait. I was casting on a school of fish. I think I had 3 5s, 2 that went 4.5, maybe 1 6, and then a whole bunch of miscellaneous other smaller fish. I had like 25 fish in about a 40-minute span, but in that 40 minutes, the air temp dropped like 25, 30 degrees.
Yeah.
I left them biting. I went out. I had a hoodie and a long sleeve shirt on, no gloves. I mean, I left my hand. My left hand that holds the reel was just absolutely numb on the backside from the wind blowing across it. But I left them biting. I mean, it was nearly every cast. I was getting hit, bit, catching one. And again, it's going out, finding those spots, and then hitting them spots in prime times, like with a storm front moving in. But yeah, just the bigger shad don't go away. And you're only optimizing your chances of bigger fish, especially in the fall and winter time, by using a bigger bait.
I've got something. So Joe asked about losing your baits, right? So what do you do to guarantee that you don't lose your rods?
Oh, I use these fancy Savur Outdoors retrieval devices for my rods.
There you go. Okay, I didn't realize that you had those. So guys, what he's talking about, this is one that I have on my action camera, but you've got he's going to show us here. There you go.
Slightly hidden up by the rod wrap, but
yeah. So you've got a spool of braided line in there. You've got about 60 feet of it. You drop your rod in the water. That thing's going to sink like it always does, but it's going to deploy that float. That float comes up to the top of the water. You grab it, reel your stuff back in. Hopefully you still got your bait on it, your expensive, reel, your rod, the whole thing comes right back to you. So that's definitely a good investment. I'm running them on my rods as well. If you guys haven't already checked it out, I've got a couple installation videos after this podcast.
I also have an installation video.
Check his out too. Or he's over there. Sorry. Okay, so something else too. Mike Boyles, he wants to make a recommendation on hooks here. He said the VMC red hooks last. He said most flake off. You'll get that red paint chipping off. And he's had some good experience. Mike catches a lot of fish. And I will trust him when he says something will last because he puts his equipment through the ringer.
I think that's a VMC.
Yeah. And it's
the one difference between like the VMCs and the Gamakatsus is most of the time the barb is bigger. Oh, that might be a Gamakatsu. But from what I've not ordered them and I don't have them readily available, but I do hear the VMC, the 1X bronzes, they've got a much bigger barb on them. Okay. That's why a lot of guys use them, like Butch Brown. That's why he likes using them for his HUDs. Yeah.
Hey, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say a budget setup. So, like, if a guy can't go out there and drop $100 or $200, for the guys out there that maybe they're just now wanting to get into swim bait fishing because of this very podcast right here, maybe $20 or less, what are some affordable baits that you would recommend them go out and buy? Maybe a glide bait, wake bait, segmented bait, whatever.
So big wake bait. I mentioned the Fish Lab. I think it's the BioShad wake. I think they're like $16.
Okay.
The Mega Dog 6-inch. If you can't find the Lunker Punker, these are $13-15. Mm-hmm. S-Waver 168. most of the time can be found nationwide for $19.
Mhm.
What else I got? Oh, I mean
The Spro.
that's the so yes, the Spro again, another $20 bill.
Yeah. And you
And I
put
mean,
in some work with that thing.
especially the floater. I mean, I had my first floater for 7 years before I broke it,
Nice.
and I didn't even with these soft plastic appendages in the fins, never lost any parts. There
Nice.
are replacement part kits for all the soft fin parts. I mean, mine was almost naked of paint, and it just still fish slaughtered it.
Heck yeah.
And I mean, they uh, coming from 8 years ago. All these baits typically come with premium hardware on them. I mean, especially like the Spros, they're straight out of the box with 2X Gamakatsu hooks. Um, I swapped the 6 cents out for the 2X Gamakatsus. They had some EWGs. I don't know who makes them on there. I threw the bait. I did legit throw that bait one day with the stock hooks and caught a 19 and a quarter inch smallmouth on it.
Oh,
I landed that fish and the bait straight up fell out of its mouth. Um, so I really don't care for the whatever the hooks that were on it. So I've stuck with Gamakatsu for
are you
years.
upsizing those hooks or?
Same size.
Okay.
On that wake, it's number 2. Same with the S Waver. So the S Wavers used to come with real crap 1X hooks. They come with like a 3X stout, I mean, tow truck hook. Uh, they're heavy. Um, they could be a little hard to penetrate with the solid rod because the thick gauge on those stock hooks. But again, I'm swapping them out for Gamakatsus. Uh, on the flip side, because you're going from a 3X long shank to a 2X, maybe either the short shank or their moderate length because they have a long shank, you lose a little weight in the bait, and that this is actually my second S Waver 200. Uh, my first one when I swapped the Gamakatsu's out on it, it floated. Um, so to remedy that, get you some storm suspense strips
Yeah.
and weigh them like your jerk baits.
Mm-hmm.
It's hardly any difference. I mean, you start with the one strip, throw it in the water. If you want to fish near the surface and it just fishes super slow or sinks super slow, throw it. If you want it to sink a little faster, say you're fishing in that 5 to 10 foot range, you might have to start uh, stacking strips. This one's got it's got 1.5 strips on it. That I think that got me to a foot every 3 seconds, and that'll be like my 50-degree water bait where I'm working it ultra slow.
Are you basically using these glide baits? Maybe not all the time, but some of the time, just like an oversized jerk bait. I mean,
Oh yeah,
you made that correlation, right? So,
yep.
is that kind of what you're doing?
So one thing that guys try to do is they try to jerk them the same way. The build jerk baits will take a lot more effort to rip than a
Mm-hmm.
glide bait. Glide bait doesn't have any bill. There's almost zero resistance in the water. Uh, when you go, if you want to jerk on the glide baits, I mean, you're doing it as much as you would do like a spook. I mean, just a little tip of the rod. I mean, just a little twitch is enough. If you try to rip it like your jerk baits, it's gonna do this little twirly blowout thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't care what glide bait it is. I mean, even
Are you talking on slack line like you do on a spook? Or?
yeah, because you can, when you do give it a pull, it that S-Wave 200, from the center line, I can get it to go 4 feet, almost nearly 4 feet, with a good tension and slack.
And that's
And
something like I have a little bit of experience throwing a glide bait, and I want to say that those reel pops seem to impart a better action when I had
yeah,
a little bit of slack in the line.
yeah, and that's so bigger hardware, bigger line, bigger rods. One thing I do tell guys is to always have the rod pointed at the bait. I just watched a video last week of a guy. He's like, "Oh my gosh, poor me! I lost this giant fish." I'm like, "Well, you cast it out, and then you came to a resting position here and started retrieving the bait. You've lost half of your hook setting range by setting your rod 90 degrees from the bait."
Mm-hmm.
So the reel pops is a good way to impart action on glides or just those baits, period, and keeping your rod straight.
Okay.
Because most of the time, especially with like treble bait rods, treble hook baits, I'm reel setting into them. It's not like with my 8-inch weedless mag drafts. I feel that 1, 2, maybe third chomp on them, and then I'm home run swinging for the fences. Most of the time with them hard baits, I am doing my retrieve. You get bit, and then you reel into them as you're pulling back.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm doing that now with my top water stuff, especially on build baits. When I first got the Spro Rat in 15 or 16 when they debuted, first day out, had 6, 7 hits with it, missed every single fish because I swung on them. And coincidentally, like a day or two later, Bill Schumatel put out a video about doing the hook sets on the Rat, and he's like, "You guys just got to reel set them." And it was true to his word, because I went out that next trip with the Rat, and they'd come smack on it. I'd just keep reeling until that rod loaded up, and then I would pull back on them.
And
I didn't miss.
Bill is so good at deflecting cover. Like these legal dope baits, I'm throwing them in the thickest stuff I can find. I'm throwing it in grass. I'm throwing it in timber. I mean, it'll go right through that stuff. And so I think that's also can be a negative when it comes to getting a hook in the fish. You know, it does a good job about covering that front hook. Exactly. So you're just letting the fish get that entire bait in its mouth before you try to get a hook in him. Is that kind of the idea, I guess, behind it?
So that's one reason why I kind of shied away from build wakes for a while. I had a period of 2 or 3 weeks with that Strike King Kong wake bait, where I had fish headshotting it here, and the bait would literally, I'd watch it right 20 feet in front of me. I'd watch that bait pendulum up and over.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I went to the Spro with no bill, and so they just bypassed that and straight into the hook.
Yeah. Okay. Heck yeah. Dropping knowledge on them, folks.
I mean, there's all kinds of floaters out there. I mean, there's soft plastic floaters, there's hard bait floaters, and I'm not against throwing soft plastics in the winter. Like that big white 11-inch Rago, it's weighted to where it sinks about this slow. Even though it's 11 inches and like 6 ounces, that thing without the extra weight I've put in it will sink this slow. And I can literally keep it up on the surface, and that tail's just floop, 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 floop.
Now that's totally different than what I've got here. This is a Huddleston 8-inch, but this is going to primarily be fished on bottom, or do you ever work this up in the water column as well?
So this, I've had HUDs. They're a little soft. They get damaged easily. And then Savage Gear come out with their pulse tail trout.
Yeah.
And I went to using that this summer. I was actually burning it on the surface, like you'd fish like you'd burn a spinner bait.
Yep.
Just bulging the surface. And I mean, I had one of the absolutely most aggressive strikes by a 21-inch bass I'd ever had. I mean, I about fell out of the kayak. It scared me so bad. It hit like 8 to 10 foot from the nose of the kayak, and out of nowhere, like I didn't see the fish follow, and it just appeared and absolutely slammed this bait. Again, that's a good way to cover water, is just swimming those big soft plastics. And if there's a hungry fish with an 8-inch bait, you're gonna know if there's a hungry fish nearby. They will let you know, and they will scare the crap out of you because it will about jerk the dang rod out of your hand.
or you'll have in that clear water, you're getting follows as well, right? And so even
especially with the I can't even say with the slow retrieves. Speaking with boils, we fished a tournament, a bass club tournament out of Baxter on Table Rock, which is kind of mid-lake-ish, and on that Spro 6-inch, even mind you, it was a 5-4-to-1 reel, but burning that bait, I had a 4.5 pound fish just all the way to the boat on a bomb cast, just follow that bait, and I'm popping and ripping and burning this bait, trying to get this fish to react, and it just, bumper to bumper the whole way, and it almost ran itself into the side of the boat. Just following that bait. But with the slower retrieves, it does happen. And that's where the real pops, the little twitches, just something to trigger a reaction out of the fish helps. I've seen upwards of 20. I lost count because these fish appeared over a ledge, and I got up to counting, I think, 18 fish before bait was out of the water, almost out of the water, and a little dink smallmouth come hit this S-Waver 200.
Dang.
It come off the hook, rod loaded, and in one smooth motion, circled that bait around, hit the thumb bar on the reel, and made an underhand pitch back out in front of that school of fish, worked that bait into it, and caught a 4.5 pound largemouth on it.
Okay.
That was one of the followers. I've tried the small bait, little backup bait. I've never had it work. Senko, fluke, drop shot worm. I've never had it work. The whole popping a 180 and having the bait do a 360. 99% of the time, I've had fish bail off and just lose interest. If they weren't going to bite the bait on a pop or a pause, visually, you're seeing this, that fish was just curious. It probably wasn't in an aggressive mood.
Okay. Yeah.
It was more curious. Come back. Especially if you do find a big fish and you've seen it, leave the area. 30 minutes to an hour and come back. I've done that multiple times. And tried to present that bait to the fish at a different angle. Sometimes you can get them, trick them on the same angle, but if you have the opportunity to cast on them and create a pinch point, like you were 10 foot away from this log and the fish was on the end of it, try to parallel that log, or there's a boulder 2 foot from the log, try to get that bait to swing and come by that boulder. You're trying to create an opportunity for that fish to pin that bait, make it
Just like they
think.
would a bait fish, just
Yep.
like they would have something right to pin that fish up against, something for them to corral that fish. I got you.
Yeah. You're creating your own pinch points.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's where the fishing uphill comes into play. Most of the time when I've had fish lose interest, I'm on the boat, I'm out in deep water, and they've either seen the boat. We've been playing with an 8 trap, figure 8 this year, with some success up against either up against the
Right
boat
at
or
the
the
boat.
kayaks.
Like a
I mean,
muskie.
just but like this. I mean, stupid fast.
Yeah.
and like 75-25% success rate.
Yeah.
But it's a learning curve. But it's something that works. But yeah, fall time can be really, really fun. I mean, I've took boils out and other buddies out, throwing them glides and them segmented swimmers and wakes and top waters and just had a ball with them, whether it be with big followers. One time I was with Mike and I saw what I thought was a turtle coming out from under this log, and it was a completely black 4-5 pound range smallmouth. I mean, just jet black fish come up to nearly to the surface to look at this S-Waver 168. And then the missed blow ups and the catch and the fish you do catch. It's been quite the adventure the last 8 years in the fall.
Yeah. Tell us. So I don't think this was a fall bite, but you had some pretty impressive numbers with one of the Moyak onlines. I don't remember what month it was. I want to say springtime, but you went out there and I think pretty much caught these limits in one day.
Almost.
Okay. Well, tell us about that a little bit.
March 2020. Again with the gut feeling and looking at conditions and stuff. So my wife and kid had gone to California at the beginning of March, and I had a bunch of side projects that kept me from actually fishing during that period. So I have a very supportive boss at work. She's great. She's like, "What day do you want to go fishing?" This is like the end of May, and this is a Monday. I'll open my phone, look at the weather, and I'm like, "Okay, conditions are lining up really, really good for Thursday." She's like, "Okay, take Thursday off." And so I head out to my spot Thursday morning. The prior year in the same spot, I racked up a 96 3/4 inch limit on the Magdraft 6-inch, and I didn't have my 8-inch Magdraft on me. It was at home and the set aside for whatever reason. So that time last year, I had it with me. But I started with the 6. I had like an 18.5 and a 19.25 on the 6-inch back-to-back casts. And I was like, they're on it. I'm putting this down. I'm picking up the 8. And it was like the second or third cast. I got slammed on the 8 and cranked that sucker in. 23 inches, 9.5 pounds on the board.
Dang.
And that was the end of that spot. I fished it for another 30 minutes without a bite, left it for an hour, come back, didn't get a sniff. It's typically a morning bite anyway in that area, and this was well after 9:30 in the morning. So I moved on, went to another area, started covering the water with a dock area with a jig, and got to a spot, caught 8 fish, 16 to 17 inches, which was, I mean, I was building up a limit. I mean, by this time I've got 65 with 3 fish. And I'm just starting to crawl towards 100. And I think I had a 17 something, but I was fishing a kind of a lay down area, and I looked to my left, and there was one lone stump sticking out of the water, and I pitched over there, hop thump, set the hook, cranked in a 9.0 that was almost 24 inches long.
Jeez.
So I had 2 9s in one day in Southwest Missouri.
That's crazy, man.
So that's not all. Went out to this area 2 days later. Caught another 22.5-inch fish on the 13 fishing 8-inch Banff shad. Had another 20 on, I think it was the Mag Draft 6-inch, and a 19 and 3/4-inch fish on the Mag Draft 6-inch or 8-inch. And I fished the rest of I think that day, and then the next day trying to cull that 19 and 3/4. Mind you, I've got 20s across the board except for this 19, and but that next day, that Sunday, was the last day of that monthly tournament. I ended up with 109 and 3/4 inches for my limit.
Jeez.
But I had 100 and a quarter the first day.
What is? I mean, was that some sort of record or?
It was until July.
Okay,
And
of this year.
Brennan broke it.
Oh wow! Well,
with
with
I
swim
think
baits.
Yep, I think
Yeah.
that was 110 and a half.
Jeez.
And also in July, Peyton, Triple P Customs, he was throwing a bull shad wake and caught that same 9.0. He got it to lay just right and stretch across that 24-inch mark. I mean, it was just that far from touching the 24-inch line. I marked it as 23 and 3/4 when I caught it. But with
Same
the side to side pictures, it was
That's
same
crazy.
fish, same jawline, same markings. Mind you, I had a cheap 0 to 80 spring scale. When I caught these fish, they're just my own personal records. The 9.5, the needle landed between the 9 and the 10. Good. This 24-inch fish, the needle landed on the 9.
Joe's trying to give away your spots here.
Drainage ditch. Not exactly. But so when Peyton caught it 3 months later in July, it still weighed 8 pounds, 14 ounces post spawn. So that gave some legitimacy to my pre-spawn 9.0 weight, which I do now have a much more accurate digital scale. For all I know, it was a 9 and 3/4 and a 10 and a quarter pound fish.
Yeah.
I mean, they grow in football proportions there. I mean, I've had 5 pound 19-inch fish out of that lake.
Nice.
They grow fat and wide. And then I mean, other notable swim bait catches, the 8 pound 10 ounce on the S Waver, largemouth out of Table Rock. I've had a few tournament wins and hourly stuff in big basses on Table Rock, Lake the Ozarks. 10 pound 12 ounce walleye on a 6-inch. It was the Bass Pro Shop Speed Shad, which is like the Kitech. Biggest striped bass is 50 pounds 4 ounces on a Spro 8-inch. There's the 6 compared to the 8. And then a 36 pound striper from the kayak.
Heck yeah.
But Yeah, here, not this weekend, next weekend. That's like the Ozarks, and I'll I'll have 4 rods with me, and it'll be a full. It's now a full KGB rods, lose reels, and probably will be KGB baits.
Yeah.
All weekend. Um, there's and some guys can golf at $100 plus bait, but I mean, there's a lot of quality in the components and the build, uh, and these garage builders don't have the resources for the mass production to make baits to help them get the price of the baits down. Uh, so there's a little labor cost involved too. Uh, that's about the only way I can justify the cost of some of these baits. Uh, I mean, the Chad Shad, 140. You could get in the blanks. He had a 300 blank legend sale around Christmas this last winter, and they were 110 a piece. Otherwise, you're getting a painted model for 160. And then bait-wrx, they get their baits. They're readily available, but the store guy has to get its cut too. So you're gonna pay the price having them readily available.
What do they run over there?
200.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you guys are looking for a KGB Chad, go on over to bait-wrx.com, I believe.
Yes. Works. WRX.com. And I do believe a load of Chad Shads was dropped off yesterday.
You believe that because you dropped them off yourself?
No, I meant with the guy that dropped him off.
Okay.
After he dropped him off.
Nice. I just wondered because I just missed you that one time. I was up there and I.
Oh yeah, I was picking up my wife from the airport, and I was killing time.
I wish I would have hit you up because it's been a couple years since I've seen you in person.
Taneycomo, 2017.
Okay, no. Big Hill. Maybe
2017.
Was that
or 18?
Okay. Was that 18? It might have been 18.
Midwest Kayak Series.
Yeah.
Event.
That might have been the last time I seen you, man. Let's change that.
Yep, that's when I first got the lure 13.5 and
Lazy Ike and the Thin Fin Hot and Tot were my best bass lures growing up.
I have thin fins that I fished in the 90s, and I can't stand to try and toss them now without an ultralight spinning rod. It's throwing a potato chip in the wind.
Yeah.
And I mean, especially now, I've become so accustomed to throwing 2 to 6 ounce baits. It's really hard for me to throw something that's 1/8 ounce and 3 inches long and side profile of a mashed wafer.
So just to kind of recap here, fall bite, we're looking for main lake points. We're looking for rock bottom, big boulder, size rock structures. We're looking for timber, heavily timber areas. Sparse. Okay.
Schooling activity.
And we're wanting to cast from the deep end and kind of bring your bait down to give them something to corral those fish on. That's kind of what you were getting at with fishing.
Cast shallow, cast into the deep, retrieve shallow. Fish uphill.
So I had that backwards.
It's okay.
Cast.
I'm here to correct you.
Cast into the shallow. Yeah, same thing. That's what I said.
Yeah. Cast into the deep, retrieve shallow.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Okay. I guess I did have that wrong. All right.
Or parallel.
Yeah.
Parallel them banks. Parallel to, especially if you've already positioned up shallow, parallel to 45 out, but deep to shallow.
Heck yeah. Schooling activity, like you mentioned.
Schooling activity, yes.
And this time of year, we're probably fishing more main lake stuff, but eventually might be able to go find them chasing bait fish up into the creeks, I would imagine.
Yep. And that's just a bite I've not really chased. Like I said, I've had plenty of success out in the main lake, and I usually have my spots to myself. I hardly ever see another boat unless they see me catching fish. I had one at that tournament last year, that championship. I had a dude, on plane coming at me, and shut it off about 75 yards out, and then just hooked a left into the cove, side scanning the spot I was fishing. I just caught that walleye. But anyway, but yeah, if you do come across that schooling activity, especially that surface activity, pass cast them. Most of the time, me personally, I've casted in the middle of them schools, and it shuts them down. I've always got to cast past it and then burn it into it or through it, and to get bit.
That makes sense.
Sometimes you can cast on top of it, but you better let that bait sleep, and just ripple subside, and then give it a couple twitches, see if something will come back for it. I've been doing that the last couple of weeks. If they're just out of my casting range, and we're talking 75 to, I don't got a yardstick out there, but I'd say upwards of 75, 80 yards that I can send that mega dog, and I try to get on top of them, if not cast past them, and then bring it past where they're surfacing. And kind of same deal like I was talking with the timber. You burn that bait up to a piece of cover or something, and then kill it. Same thing with that top water when they're out in the open, hitting that bait. You throw past it, burn it up to them, and then start working it slow, erratically. And if you don't get bit, just buzz that sucker in and work the next spot.
Hell yeah, man. Well, I'm going to take your advice. I might throw this thing around a little bit. I really want to see what it looks like in the water. Definitely going to be throwing that legal dope nuisance wake as well. Probably have that tied on this weekend at the
Yeah, and I've gotten bit on them wakes. Into the upper 40 water degree temps. I have a picture of a 3-pound fish with the striking King Kong, and I'm holding that fish up against a bluff, and there's icicles frozen on that bluff, and I made a screenshot of the forecast in the split screen, and it was 27 degrees that day, and I had 4 or 5 fish that afternoon, and that specific fish I took a picture of, it hit that bait in a foot of water.
Yep. Heck yeah.
So.
Heck yeah. I'm not going to put it down anytime soon, that's for sure.
Unless it's frozen, you can still catch them topwater fish, but it's slow. I'll sing the Jack in the Box tune, reeling. Just waiting for the boom. And they always try to obliterate it. They don't come up and go. They're they want it fast and quick and dead. But
Heck yeah, man.
Sometimes, most of the time, I sing it in my head, but I'll be out there by myself. I was just singing out loud. Especially when I'm in like my more prime areas, and I've already seen a fish or two come up, swirl, or hit it.
Just something to keep you in
Yeah,
that slower mind state.
yeah.
You don't get sidetracked and just start reeling.
Um,
Heck yeah,
yeah,
man.
it's the swim bait journey has been fun. I've met so many people and done all kind of cool things with them. Uh, and caught, I mean, just amazing fish, especially for this area.
Yeah, dude. I guess I didn't realize that, and maybe I knew that, but I didn't realize when I asked you that question that you had 2 9-pounders in the same day, and
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I mean, there's been guys that have caught 8s and 9s and 10s, a single fish in a day. I believe Mike Webb's got an 11 or a low 12 out of Table Rock.
Wow.
I believe that was an A-rig fish. But like even Boyles told me, he's like, "You're the only dude I've known that's got 2 9-pounders in one day."
He knows a lot of a lot of sticks too.
Yeah.
So
That's a little notch on my belt.
there you
I
go.
wear around a lot.
Dude, I'd be flaunting that shit like crazy. That's something to really be proud of. And
On top of the catch and release working in that smaller 9 getting caught again.
yeah.
It won big bass in both tournaments.
I bet it did.
$900 that fish won us last year
Nice.
between the 2 big bass pots.
That's awesome. Heck yeah. Throw back the big ones. Eat all the small ones you want. I don't care. But
yeah. If you got a 12-inch limit on the lake, keep all the 12 and 14s you want.
I wouldn't even be mad if you're keeping 15s, like if the law allows, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's 6 here. I don't know what it is there.
Well, our limit's like 8. They have to be 18 inches to keep, which is so stupid.
Oh, yeah.
So they just eat all the big fish. I mean, that's what happens. And all the little fish get to go eat all the big fish's food. So
yeah.
What sense does that make? But hey, that's for another podcast. But did little guy pass out or what?
No, he's got his watching one of his favorite cartoons, just content.
Heck yeah, man. Well, do you want to shout out? I figure we'll probably wrap this up pretty quick, but do you want to shout out any of your sponsors before we go?
We've covered about all of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go to KGB Swimbaits on Facebook, on Instagram, or on his website, kgbswimbaits.com. Same with bait-wrx. They've got their Facebook, their Instagram, their website, Savur Outdoors.
And if you ever get a chance to visit bait-wrx, that's one of the coolest tackle shops I've ever been in. Springfield, Missouri. If you're ever driving through, like everybody wants to go to Bass Pro, go to bait-wrx. Check that place out. It is badass.
So, dude, I literally compared them back to back that day. I went to bait-wrx first, and then went to the Bass Pro store, and I mean, apples to apples, bait-wrx had more stuff.
And they have all the
fishing
juice,
tackle wise.
They have all the juice too. Like that's what really impressed me about bait-wrx is they don't just have this like huge selection of just whatever. They had a huge selection of everything that the anglers want. Like you go to the Ozarks area and you fish, they had everything that those guys want. Like they're listening to you guys, they're listening to their pro staff guys, their customers. Like they had all the juice.
And I mean, it's not only just for like say Table Rock or Bull Shoals, but I mean we've got pros on there that are residents of like the Ozarks, Grand Lake,
Stockton,
and Stockton, and 10 Killer, them
Pomme de terre.
Northeast Oklahoma area.
Yeah.
I mean, and then you got the guys that fish all the Bass Opens. The owner himself, Drew, I think he just went and fished the St. Clair or Champlain, up one of the big smallmouth fisheries up there. He went and fished that tournament last week before. And then Guttersville. I mean, the guys go where the tournaments are, and they will carry that stuff in the store. And it's kind of funny. I'm surprised that they've not used my slogan yet with the store has all the right stuff and none of the fluff.
Hey, that's true, man. That's true.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean,
next
because you
time
go into Bass Pro.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into Bass Pro, they got all their
junk.
Junk.
They have some of the good stuff, but a lot of it is the fluff, like you say.
Yeah.
Hey, guys, for everybody watching this video right now that pays a visit to bait-wrx, one of my favorite lures in that store is going to be the Trophy Bass Company Ozark Flash spinnerbait.
Yeah.
Go check those out. I picked a couple of those up while I was there. Badass spinnerbait, one of my favorites. But anyways, bait-wrx, badass place. I don't want to overshadow Savur Outdoors. You were touching on that. I'm definitely a fan, and that's how we met.
Yep.
If you guys, it doesn't matter if you're in a boat or a kayak or whatever the situation is, put you one of those retrieval devices on there. Get that rod float. It's not hard to install. Check out one of our videos. And not only are you saving the rod, you're saving the reel, and you're saving that $100 swim bait you got tied on there too.
And you're saving yourself. To touch on that subject, wintertime fishing, one time me and Kevin were out. I was messing with this front graph. It wouldn't turn on. I had to turn around to go to the console to flip on the power switch for that front unit. Well, when I spun around, I spun my foot and my heel knocked two of his rods off the boat. And I just threw mine down and jumped in and grabbing the gunnel with this hand. I got the rods, but mind you, we had 48-degree water and a high 30s air temp.
Oh man.
I was wearing layers and I was in and out so quick my underwear didn't even get wet. But still the rest of my stuff was soaked. But we weren't but a 2-minute blast from the ramp where my truck was, and I had extra clothes. But
I bet that blast felt good.
Oh. I was wearing an Under Armour beanie, like the thin one. Yeah. And my head was an icicle when we got back to the ramp. But I got lucky in that instance. But, I mean, you try to dive in after a rod in this kind of weather, once it gets cold, that could kill you.
Yep.
So, not only are you saving your equipment, but you can save yourself.
Heck yeah.
That's one thing less that I worried about was my rods and my kayak flip in 2016. I had 3 rods with me. The only rod I didn't get back didn't have a Savur on it, and that was if you remember the Manly.
I remember
extend the butts. Mm-hmm. We had to use a spacer and drill that rod to make room for the screw. I hadn't done it on that rod when that happened.
Yeah. Corey sent me one of those, and I had one on my Savur or on my Manly. You and I might have been some of the only ones to have a Savur on a Manly. I think. I don't think he went very far with that.
No, Manly started liquidating his rods and then just never came back.
Yeah. But anyways, man, heck yeah.
His memory lives on in my king rod. That's how I put a Savur on that, because the blank was so big that I took that furl that held that extend butt, but it's all the way collapsed. But that fit perfectly inside the blank of the king rod.
Oh, nice.
And that's how I put a Savur on my king rod.
That's cool. Heck yeah. Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you tuning in, or appreciate you joining me tonight. Definitely been kind of getting into the swim baits a little bit more. I definitely took a long break from fishing them. I think you and Edwin were probably the ones that inspired me to throw them in the beginning, anyways. And just catching a few fish on them, you really gain a lot of confidence in it. So for the people out there that want to get into swim bait fishing, start out with some of these lures that you can afford. Start out throwing like a heavy flipping stick if you have to do it, but just start throwing them. Put the time in on the water. You catch a couple fish on them, and I think one thing that helped me gain a lot of confidence in swim bait fishing is catching small fish on them. So now I even have the confidence to throw them in the middle of a tournament because I know I'm still going to catch little fish. I'm not really, ruling those smaller fish out as well. Like even if I want to get a limit. So,
and I mean, to tag on to the March 2020 story, I went out again in April, only with the 8-inch mag draft. Had Ty Ward. He was out there on the lake with me that day, and he watched me catch. I think it was like 99.5 inches in like 15 casts. Between, I think I had 6 or 7 fish on an 8-inch bait. I had 221s, a 20, a high 20, a low 20, and a 19-incher. Something to that effect. And a fat-headed, stubby-bodied 16.5. It had a 4-pound head on it, and it was 16.5 inches long. I laughed when I netted it. I yelled at him. I'm like, I bet this won't even measure 17, and it didn't.
That's funny. Heck yeah, guys. So get out there, throw some swim baits, use some of the tips from Richy Laughery for all of you guys that aren't in the know. That's how you say it. The Missouri Swimbait slinger, the man himself, Mr. bait-wrx. Appreciate you tuning in. Joining us.
Yeah.
Appreciate everybody tuning in. Oh, yeah, there's the crappie. Heck yeah. Make sure you guys pay attention to those drops as well. Those KGBs go quick.
Yeah.
But all right, man. Well, I think I'm gonna hit the sack. I'm gonna call it a night. I have been on the move since early this morning. But we're gonna have to get together. I'm gonna take you up on a trip out to Table Rock or wherever. I'm gonna bring my swim bait gear and we're gonna go get on it one of these days.
Yeah, I've got a bite for every month except February.
Heck yeah.
Literally, February is my worst month.
Is it? Yeah. Well, in this part of the country, that's understandable. But all right, man. Well, I appreciate you joining us tonight, and you have a good one.
You have a wonderful evening.
We'll see
you
again real soon.
All right.
Later. All right, guys. There you have it. Appreciate Richy joining us tonight. I know a lot of you guys appreciate it as well. He gave us a lot of good information. And this guy is a swim bait stick for sure. And I'm going to be taking some of his advice. And hopefully that's going to help me put out some more quality swim bait videos. I've had a few of those this year and intend on having some more of those. So make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't already. We got a lot of new viewers that have been joining the channel recently. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that notifications bell. That way you know when we are posting videos in the future. And something else too, we've been doing these 6 Sense unboxings. I've been fishing a lot of these 6 Sense baits, something that I really stand behind. I love all these baits that I've been getting from them, whether it's their soft plastics, their hard baits, their terminal tackle. Make sure you guys use code Team6Fan, no spaces, all caps, Team6Fan to save 10% on your next order. Guys, I appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you again real soon. I'm going to sign off here. Have a good night, guys.